People keep asking me, Mike, are we in a recession? My answer is no, because we are in a depression.
1.15 million mortgages in Canada are coming due in 2026.
You're a newcomer to social media in 2026. It is going to be a nightmare.
Now this is why you will be $1,000 poorer in 2026.
2026 is bringing in a bunch more rules. The government's going to be...
Here's the latest Canada's housing outlook for 2026, and it's not as clear as people think.
The Canadian immigration system is broken in many ways, and
Canada will be welcoming 380,000 permanent residents in 2026.
Canada's economy just hit a speed bump, and that bump can change the housing market in 2026.
Welcome to Canadian Rant. Canada is not in a recession. Let's stop pretending. What Canadians are living through right now feels far deeper than a temporary slowdown. This feels like a depression. In 2025, millions of Canadians are already struggling just to stay afloat. The cost of living is out of control. Jobs are disappearing or paying wages that don't match reality. Healthcare is stretched to the breaking point. Homelessness is no longer hidden. It's everywhere. This isn't happening on the margins. This is everyday life. People are working full-time and falling behind. Graduates can't find jobs. Families are cutting essentials. Seniors are afraid of retirement. Young Canadians are losing hope. And the scariest part? We're being told this is normal. So today we ask a hard question. Is 2026 the year Canada finally changes direction? Or will we keep repeating the same cycle of promises, excuses, and decline? Because if nothing changes, this doesn't get better. It gets permanent.
Bruno, what do you see as a big concern for 2026?
1.15 million mortgages in Canada are coming due in 2026. The average value in Ontario is now $819,000. CIBC did a study. Ontario homeowners could be in negative equity position next year. Your payments might be going up by $750 a month. 55% of GDP in Canada is attributed to consumer spending. If people are limited in their abilities to refinance, take equity out, pay off debt, and that could seriously have negative implications to Canada's overall GDP.
Dancing in the moonlight, everybody's feeling warm and crying. Such a crying and the sight. Everybody's there.
2026 is bringing in a bunch more rules. The government's going to be dropping a lot more rules for us, a lot more, less freedom, and more ways to collect tax money. More analyzing what you have, what you don't have.
You're a newcomer to social media in 2026. It is going to be a nightmare. I swear back in the day, there was a gap between us and content creators. It was the likes of PewDiePie, KSI, people like this. And now it is literally everyone and their grandma. There's 80-year-old women dancing on TikTok that are getting more views than me. There's people with millions of views just from dancing around the kitchen. There's a little fat kid called the Rizzler that literally just does the Riz face. And he's a millionaire. He's a multi-millionaire. Like, the competition is wild these days. Like, everyone is realising you can make money online. Harsh reality of this is, it is literally only ever going to get worse. There's no way out of this. This is the way our world is going. It's not going to go back to where 9 till 5s are going to be paid better than online money. You need to get yourself in there. Like, this is no joke. Like, if you genuinely want to be rich, if you want to make money these days, get yourself online, start posting, start a side hustle, do something. I help people, so check my bio because I'm going to help you do that.
Here's the latest Canada's housing outlook for 2026, and it's not as clear as people think. Some forecasts point to stabilization, while others point to a very different outlook depending on where you live. Major markets like Vancouver and Toronto could lag, while other regions may see stronger gains. On a different outlook, Canadian Real Estate Associations sees home sales to rebound in 2026, but price growth is expected to stay modest. Other forecasts paint a more cautious picture, most agreeing on one thing. Rates, affordability, and inventory will decide what happens next year. So all in all, 2026 is not a boom or crash, it's about divergence. Let me know in the comments what's your take.
Canada's economy just hit a speed bump, and that bump can change the housing market in 2026. Real GDP fell 0.3% in October, the largest drop in nearly 3 years, wiping out September's economic growth and pointing to a picture of sluggish economic momentum heading into the new year. Well, here is why this matters for real estate. Slower economic growth and uncertainty often make buyers more cautious, especially when jobs and consumer confidence wobble. But at the same time, interest rates are near historic lows, helping some buyers enter the market. What does this mean for predictions in 2026 for real estate? Well, sales could stabilize but remain below boom year levels. Markets are running hot, but they're not crashing either. What about home prices? Well, we may see modest growth or gentle declines in many regions as demand adjusts for slower GDP and cautious buyers. Mortgage rates probably stay lower for longer, keeping affordability somewhat balanced and encouraging more activity than high rate would. So what is my real estate takeaway from this article? A soft economy doesn't kill housing. It reshapes it. Buyers get more negotiating power, sellers need sharper pricing, and investors should target markets with strong local jobs and population growth, not just hot headlines. So if you're thinking of buying or selling in 2026, reach out to a realtor and to give you the real facts, not headlines. And as always, I'm always here willing to help. Send me a DM.
These are my predictions for Canada in 2026. First up, we got residential fortifications and the castleification of a residential property in Canada. Walls, barbed wire. Look at countries like South Africa, Brazil. They have big walls with barbed wire on it. 2, Rwandan-style ethnic violence. Everyone knows what happened in Rwanda. The Hutu and the Tutsi. The Tutsi were used by the ruling class, which caused resentment from the Hutu. Mass media and the radio whipped the Hutu into a genocidal frenzy against the Tutsi. They dehumanize them. They call them cockroaches. Very similar to what's happening in Canada. Our university, oh, you're white. We've already codified in our Canadian law that white people face harsher punishments than anyone else. What's next? iPhone. If you have an iPhone and you have lots of memories stored in your iCloud, you should probably print them off. Those will not be around for more than 5 years. Small localized banditry and local warlords. People can just break into the houses, do all this stuff. We're already seeing some of this in BC, but I'm seeing it become more established. Have a guy who has a big house, people just sit outside with weapons. We're not allowed weapons, but I mean, they face no repercussions, so why would they not take it to the next level? You see this in places like the Congo, Haiti. You saw this with the, I forget the name of it, but the river pirates in colonial Vietnam. The French government used the river pirate to push, addictive things. What else? A draft. I can see a draft coming. Initial part, I'll really like it. I'll have a lot of fun. I'll be like, see, because most of these people I've talked to have been like, we're not getting drafted. We live in Canada. But I won't enjoy watching myself get drafted. I'll run really fast. And we've seen this in Ukraine along with the drone warfare. They've been letting us watch this we'll be good. But Ukraine is a test. I can't wait to see. I live in Canada. You can't draft me. Yes, but you're in Venezuela now. Yes, but you're in Iran now. That will be bittersweet. Oh, and then mass arrests for political dissent. And this one's not really a prediction. I mean, all the things are coming into place right now. They just need to turn the key on the machine. Bill C, bill, all the bills. The framework is in place. So those are my predictions for Canada 2026. These are my predictions for Canada in 2026, part 2. First up, we got bribes at traffic stops or the border. This is something that you see a lot of in third world countries, and in 2026, it's still going to be something that you see a lot of in third world countries. Number 2, we have the boomer warhawks. We've already seen this with the Ukraine war. These people spent their entire lives criticizing the Iraq war, and then they were just like, we must help the Ukraine. Well, not me. We have to help. And I see a soft launch for this on CTV and the CBC. If you hear your mom start saying stuff like, I'm boycotting Venezuela, or your dad is like, the Iranians don't let their women get third trimester abortions, something's gotta be done. Number 3, the boomer awakening. I could see 2026 being the first time ever that a boomer has listened to her friend shout about Donald Trump in the local coffee shop, and she just said, know what? I don't give a God's green damn about Donald Trump. I care about my country and the future of my children. And their friend's like, oh, I don't care about Donald Trump either. And then this will spread a chain reaction across the boomer communities of Canada. Don't bet big on this one, this is a long shot. You have an extra $10, well, you won't have $10 lying around, but if you find a loaf of bread on the ground, offer it to your bookie. If this one hits, he'll give you a castle. Number 4, this one's for the boys. White women get their first taste of DEI. And I know the first time you hear a white lady say, it's the 55th interview. They just keep saying, we're not hiring white women candidates at the moment. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to feel really good. A lot of us have been pushed out of our professions or the things we love since around 2010, right? So really soak it in. But remember to keep it classy. Oh, and number 5, with Mark Carney frequently talking about expanding and building up our military, I think what they're probably going to do is have a big parade. And we saw this in America last year. If it's not going to look scary, don't do it. They're marching out of time, looking in the sky. There's one Humvee. Just cancel the parade. I'm not going to be in the parade, but if the American one was that funny, you do not want to miss the Canadian one. I will definitely be there. Number 6, this one's not a prediction. This, of course, is a liberal majority. And it's Christmas. Give Michael Ma and the next person to cross the floor a bit of a break. What would you say if a WEF goon came up to you and said, life and money or death? I'm taking the money. Those are my 2026 predictions for Canada, Part 2. Merry Christmas to everyone except David Eby, Michael Ma, and anyone who left a stupid comment in Part 1. I hope you sprain an ankle.
People keep asking me, Mike, are we in a recession? My answer is no, because we are in a depression. Because we are in a depression. You guys remember our older videos. We covered this back in 2017 when the average home price in Vancouver crossed $1 million. Average home. Not a mansion, average home. Toronto followed when Vancouver created the foreign buyers tax, and we warned you about this tsunami heading east from Vancouver. They did this to combat Chinese money laundering. And all the videos are up on YouTube if you guys want to retrace it with timestamps and figure out this model that's been going on. Why you can't afford anything. And why your wages are flat. Debt's exploding. Food bank lineups. That's not growth, that's financial exclusion. And from 2015 to 2019, Canada saw hundreds of billions, $2.4 to $2.6 trillion flood into real estate from China through Canada. Through money flows, casinos, shell companies, suitcases of cash, student visas, fentanyl, empty homes. And CSIS warned about it. I remember it was called the commission, the CC Commission, the Cullen Commission. They confirmed that back in, I think it was 2021 or 2022. Locals were bidding against global capital, not each other. That's when I believe the recession began, in 2017-ish, when Canadians could no longer buy into their own country. Now let's define this a little bit better, okay? A recession is, I think it's 2 quarters of negative GDP. A depression is long-term structural damage, unaffordable housing, permanent debt, collapsing birth rates, homelessness, food banks going out of control. Productivity is dead, right? Then by 2022, I think Canadians cross the line into a depression. Interest rates jumps from 0.25% to 5% or 4.5% in 18 months. And we warned you they're going to raise rates. Mortgage payments doubled. Food inflation hit 10% or 15%. Rent up 20, 30% in major cities. We kept telling you, get out of the city. Credit card balance hit record highs. Insolvency filings, I think, surged 40, 44%, I think it was. That's not a recession. We are in a depression. That's people living dollars away from bankruptcy. GDP can rise while citizens fall. That's a depression disguised by migrants and debt. We didn't enter a depression, folks. I think we just woke up in one. And the worst part, most Canadians still think it hasn't started yet. Mike Martin's here. I have spoken.
The Canadian immigration system is broken in many ways, and what you're seeing now are drastic attempts to keep the system intact while trying to reform it for the better. There is now a surplus of temporary residents, and most of the focus will be on these in-Canada visa holders for probably the next few years. As a result, Canada will be approving less visitors, less students, and less workers. The bar has been raised, and applications need to be presented with compelling details and evidence to stand a good chance. But one thing has not changed, and that's the law. Immigration officers have a lot of discretion to deny your visa application, but they have to respect the law while doing so. And the law was set by the Supreme Court of Canada. When an officer rejects you, the reasons need to be transparent, justified, and intelligible. In other words, you, the applicant, have to have some level of understanding on why your application was rejected, and it needs to have some logical flow to it. It can't just be conclusions or vague statements. Because of factors like AI software and poor officer training, we're seeing more genuine applications getting refused. Not all of them, but enough to cause a surge in federal court challenges. As an immigration lawyer, I represent a lot of clients struggling to see their spouse, their child, and their parents because their visa applications keep getting refused. Many are Canadian citizens, by the way, being told that their families are not welcomed. It's really heartbreaking to watch these genuine applicants become victims of the system when it's clear that they're not going to overstay. A lot of these federal court cases end up with an early settlement, especially when it's clear that an application was unlawfully rejected, and most end up getting approved afterwards. But the emotional and financial toll caused by the whole process goes against the Canadian ethos. Until the system reforms, this is the reality we're working with. It's easy for people to say, screw it, and look elsewhere. But when you have close family in Canada, you can't just do that. Our firm works mostly with people that have been refused multiple times. It's not just about doing the legal work. Our client relationships go beyond that, since many are shocked and heartbroken to find out that they can't see their family. Despite all this gloomy talk here, we're happy to see that visas are still being approved, even if it sometimes takes a federal court challenge. But it's important to be realistic and understand that things may not go your way the first time, and that there are ways to successfully fight back. Part of the reason I post these videos is to give a realistic outlook on what the Canadian immigration journey can look like. I've been posting videos for a few years now, and I'm amazed and thankful at all the support. Seeing people open up in the comments and share their experiences has been incredible. It feels like the beginning of a real community, one where you can learn from others, support each other, and know that you're not going through this alone. Share this with anyone going through struggles with Canadian immigration right now.
Do you want to go to Canada in 2026? I have some good news. Canada will be welcoming 380,000 permanent residents in 2026. But the game has changed. In the newly released Immigration Levels Plan, Canada plans to welcome 380,000 permanent residents per year in 2026, 2027, and 2028. But here's a real game changer. The provincial nominee programs are skyrocketing from 55,000 per year to 99,000. That's almost double, and it signals one clear thing, is that the provinces need skilled workers, and the PNPs will be extremely active in selecting candidates in 2026. This means if you're looking for a pathway to PR or immigration options, PNPs will be one of the strongest avenues in 2026. For those in Canada, as part of the immigration plan, there is a one-time initiative to transition 33,000 temporary workers to permanent residency in 2026 and 2027. Don't wait. 2026 planning starts now. If you want to know which program gives you the best chance based on your profile, contact me for an eligibility review at nccanadaimmigration.com or email info@nccanadaimmigration.com.
We've been talking about this for weeks, haven't we? Foreign dignitaries do not want to come to Canada. They don't want to deal with Mark Carney and his red tape and his difficult to deal with government. Mexico actually said those exact words. But yesterday, we did have a dignitary arrive in Canada. It was shocking. Somebody arrived in Halifax. Oh, but wait. He arrived with his hands out because it was Zelensky from Ukraine visiting Mark Carney again. Hands out for a further $2.8 billion in support. $2.8 billion on top of the other $34 or so billion we have already been given to Ukraine. It's a wonder our seniors in Canada are having trouble living, isn't it? When you give 36 some odd billion dollars to a foreign money laundering country. And let's be honest, that's all we've got because we have no receipts, so we can only assume this is what happens to senior services, senior supports, seniors' way of living. There's nothing there for you. You gave your entire life to this country. You gave your entire career, all your taxes, all your CPP, all your EI to this country, and they gave it to Zelensky. And now, when you stand in the grocery line and you can't really figure out whether your bank is going to cover this particular bill this time, and you nervously go to tap your card, that's not your fault. That's our country's fault. And today, we're going to talk about what 2026 may look like for our senior generations. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to a special Sunday edition of the Weekend Wrap as we get close to wrapping up our entire year. 2025 is about to go, and our seniors didn't have a great year. Our boomer generation certainly wasn't taken care of by this government, and I want to talk today about that group, the group that built this country, paid into it, sacrificed for it, raised families in it, and now deserves something pretty simple in return, in my opinion. That's a stable life, a safe street that they can live on, a safe life overall, and a dignified life at that. Now, most seniors I'm talking to, they don't actually want luxury necessarily. They're not looking for yachts. They're not looking for champagne socialism like Mark Carney is. Just the promise that after decades of work for this country, you don't have to spend your late 60s, your 70s, and 80s doing math in your head at the grocery store like you're defusing some kind of detonating device. Because as we roll into a brand new year in 2026, Canadian seniors are heading into what I'm afraid might be a little bit of a quiet squeeze for you. Not one big dramatic cut you can point to, especially in a potential election year. Not one obvious announcement from Mark Carney that you're going to go aghast that things are about to get horrible. But I think there'll be a steady grind where your money buys a little bit less again, your bills creep up a little bit more, your services get harder to access, and the government's quote-unquote help shows up as a press release first and real relief probably never. So let's do all of this properly this Sunday morning. Share this video. Today we are going to lay out what seniors can actually potentially expect in 2026 using facts. And then we're going to talk about exactly how liberal policy might hurt their way of life, not in theory, but in plain real-world cause and effect. And then at the end of this episode, I'm going to explain how a government change, yes, a potential election, if it happens anytime during the year, the spring, the fall, whenever it could happen, could genuinely save the year for seniors, what would have to happen, and how fast life could improve if the priorities changed under a new government. Because seniors don't need more slogans this year. They don't need more pretend promises that never come or any MOUs directed at them. They need results. So let's tear right into this because the results are what hasn't come so far in the first year of Mark Carney. Let's start with the basics, and that's old age security. How well has that gone, right? Well, OAS is indexed quarterly to inflation, which sounds reassuring to you. Until you realize it's basically the government saying, don't worry, we'll let you fall behind in real time, but we'll adjust the paperwork for you later. So it doesn't happen instantly, and it happens after you have already been hurting. For January to March 2026 quarter, the federal government's own OAS page shows a 0.3% increase. Does that sound like what inflation is at? Let me translate that into real life for you. When your costs spike fast, like food and your home insurance, your rent, your utilities, your property taxes, a tiny quarterly adjustment doesn't feel like protection, does it? It feels like permission for everything else to rise first. And yes, if you're 75 or older, there's still the separate 10% permanent top-up that kicks in the month after your 75th birthday, and that is real. But here's what seniors know. That top-up doesn't matter much if the overall system is letting the cost of living outrun any benefits this government ever sends to you, despite all your work you gave them over your career. Now let's talk about guaranteed income supplement as well, because we always get liberals jumping into the comments, well, what about the very generous GIS? Well, the GIS is life-saving for low-income seniors, and it is also notoriously vulnerable to paperwork gaps, tax filing issues, and oops, we recalculated surprises as well, so it's not as good as you think. The government has been talking about automatic benefit access and automatic tax filing starting for this 2026 tax year, which they say will help millions of low-income Canadians get benefits they qualify for. Okay, sounds good, right? Well, on the surface it does, and in some cases it will help some seniors, but it also creates a new fear for seniors. When your income support depends on automated systems, we've seen how chatbot Charlie has worked, and a bureaucracy that already struggles with accuracy, you are one error away from weeks or potentially months without that supplement and extra stress. Now, the other 2026 reality seniors will feel hard is food inflation. Canada's Food Price Report 2026 is forecasting overall food prices rising 4 to 6% in 2026. And if you're thinking, yeah, but inflation is down or it's stabilized, here's the trick. Headline inflation could look calm while the essentials of life keep climbing. Food is not optional to any human being. It is not something you can live without. Seniors don't delay groceries the way governments delay budgets or delay their benefits. So if food is rising another 4 to 6%, seniors on fixed incomes are effectively receiving a quiet pay cut without it actually being announced by anyone. And on top of that, you've got interest rate uncertainty, housing costs, rent increases, condo fees, home insurance, auto insurance, and health expenses that are often not fully covered. Now, some government programs do exist that can help you, and you need to take advantage of them in 2026. We have the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and the program guidance itself makes it clear coverage periods and renewals do matter. And there can be gaps if renewals are missed, so watch out for, again, the paperwork here. We also have pharmacare legislation in place at the federal level. The Pharmacare Act came into force in October 2024 and is described as laying groundwork, starting with specific categories like contraception and diabetes medication, and then moving toward broader coverage over time. So those things do exist. And it might sound like progress, but the key words are groundwork. That's what scares me for you. The word groundwork, or starting with, or over time. This is a big liberal phrase. Seniors don't live in press releases. They live in their homes and timelines in this country. And if the rollout is slow, if it's patchy or tangled in federal provincial fights, seniors don't experience it as historic reform. Instead, they experience it as, I thought I was getting this, but now I still have to pay at the pharmacy. And that could be really scary with the way that the income supplements begin to drop when you factor in all of the inflating grocery prices. This is where my quiet squeeze is really, I think, playing into your 2026 year. Now we get to the part people always dance around. So we're not going to do that. Because there's this idea in Canadian politics that if you say the words seniors are being squeezed, someone will jump out from behind a podium and scream, how dare you? We increased something by 0.3% for the first quarter of 2026. But seniors don't live by that percentage, and that percentage doesn't even really have anything to do with inflation, despite what they say. They live, seniors that is, by their bank account. So how does liberal policy hurt seniors' way of life in 2026? Well, despite what we've already said here, let's break it down into what I call the 4 squeeze points that I think we're going to see in 2026. The costs, taxes, services, and certainty. Now, costs, this is when policy raises prices, seniors pay first, that sort of thing. So seniors are the least able to just earn more, right? If you look at what seniors can do to earn money, they're the least able to do it. If you're 35 and groceries jump, you can try a side hustle, work overtime, or a job change. If you're 75, you can't exactly do that. If you're 75, you can't exactly start driving Uber at midnight because chicken got more expensive. So policies that contribute to higher costs hit our seniors first, and they hit them the hardest. And there's little or nothing they can do about it. And one of the most dangerous things governments do is pretend they're not responsible for cost pressures that they created. Even when programs aren't labeled a tax on seniors, seniors still pay them through the higher prices overall. Carbon pricing is the classic example of this. Whether it's direct charges or compliance costs, it flows through supply chains. And that's trucking, that's agriculture, that's processing, that's refrigeration retail, I should say. And yes, the federal system has a schedule framework up to 2030, and the government's own materials reference price levels rising toward $170 per ton by 2030 in the federal benchmark context. That will affect every single senior. Now, I'm going to be careful here because Canadians have seen different changes in different provincial situations, of course, across the country. For example, Enbridge Gas notes the federal carbon charge was removed from customers' bills effective April 1st, 2025. Thank goodness. Thank you, Pierre, in their billing context. But here's the seniors' reality. Seniors don't experience policy architecture. They experience the prices. If the government wants seniors to feel protected, then seniors have to actually see lower bills. That's what Pierre has been talking about for months and needs to get in to do it, because the lower bills count. Lower groceries totals count. This is the thing. Everything that appears on the invoice counts toward our seniors. And that's why food inflation forecasts matter so much. 4 to 6% is not a rounding error, and it's huge for our seniors. It's a lifestyle change. It means more sacrifices in their lives when they already did so.
What Canadians are living through right now is more than an economic downturn. It's a breaking point. People aren't just worried about money anymore. They're worried about stability, about dignity, about whether life in Canada will ever feel manageable again. A recession implies recovery. What many Canadians feel instead is being stuck with rising prices, stagnant wages, overloaded healthcare, growing homelessness, and a system that keeps telling people to be patient while their quality of life erodes. This didn't happen overnight. Years of repeating the same decisions, ignoring warning signs, and prioritizing short-term optics over long-term outcomes brought Canada here. And that's why the question now isn't whether things are hard. We all know they are. The real question is, do we keep repeating the same cycle, rinse and repeat, garbage in, garbage out? Or do we finally demand a different path? Because the cost of doing nothing is no longer theoretical. It's visible on our streets, in our hospitals, in our grocery bills, in the quiet anxiety Canadians carry every day. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about honesty. A country that normalizes struggle will eventually lose hope. And once hope disappears, rebuilding becomes much harder. But here's the part that still matters. Canada's future is not locked in. Change doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from acknowledging what's broken and refusing to accept it as permanent. That starts with conversations like this, with Canadians speaking openly, sharing experiences, and refusing to be dismissed. If this video reflects what you're living, you're not alone. Share it so others know they're not alone either. Comment with what you think needs to change. Your voice matters. Subscribe to Canadian Rant if you want real conversations about where Canada stands and where it's heading. And now, as we stand at the edge of a new year, this moment matters. 2026 isn't just another number on the calendar, it's an opportunity, maybe a defining one, to change direction. A chance to rebuild affordability, a chance to restore dignity to work and retirement, a chance to demand outcomes instead of excuses. No one expects perfection. Canadians are asking for fairness, for stability, for a future that doesn't feel smaller than the past. So as this year closes, here's the hope. That 2026 becomes the year Canadians stop settling, the year survival turns back into living, the year accountability finally replaces repetition. From Canadian Rant to you and your family, Happy New Year 2026. May this coming year bring clarity, courage, and real change. Canada deserves better, and so do you. Thank you for watching. Thank you.